Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen May, and we are here today with Trevor Ashley on That Show with Mahy. Trevor, thank you so much for jumping on board and having a chat.
Thank you, my darling. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too. Well, happy isolation. How are you coping?
Do you know, it was difficult. I was actually overseas when this whole thing hit. So everyone was screaming at me, get home, get home. And then I came home in time to do 14 days in quarantine. Thank God it was at my house, not at a hotel, but um, it was hard. And because I'm a very social person, I'm used to seeing lots of people. I'm used to being with lots of people. And for me, it was a challenge to just be within these four walls for 2 full weeks. It was hard. I can't say I loved it, but
Right.
I'm better now that we can see one and two people. I'm much better now. I found it, yeah, that the not seeing anybody thing was really tough.
Absolutely. Now, I guess if people have been sitting under a rock and they don't know who you are, and in a very positive sense, you are. I would say an icon in the entertainment industry in Australia, um, in so many different forms. And I mean, I say icon because it's just, I think you found something about what you can do that nobody else does. And maybe they do around the world, but certainly in Australia, I look up to you, and I just admire what you do because you've found something. Do you, along the way, there's probably trials and tribulations of sort of how you've gotten to where you have gotten, but the moment you are where you are right now, how did you sort of imagine this is what was going to be, I'm going to be doing, or?
Look, I always wanted to be a performer, and dare I say, I always wanted to be a star, which I'm not really. I've done a lot in the industry, and I certainly have a lot of people's respect, which is lovely. And that, I think, is something that's become more important to me actually than the fame and the stuff that I wanted as a child. But I guess it happened in a much more unconventional way than I had imagined it would happen. I had always thought that I would be that kid who went into a musical theatre audition. I'd get the lead role in a musical, I'd be the star, and that'd be the end.
Yeah.
And that's really not how it happened, and certainly not how I've managed to stay in this business for the last 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, did drag help you get to where you are, or was it Trevor that got you to where you are? I mean, I know that's the same thing, but like a
Uh,
brand of Trevor Ashley is different to a brand of what, Liza on an E is.
Exactly. Look, there was a mix of both, and I think that the interesting thing was that I never set out to be a drag performer. That was not ever really something I'd considered.
Mm.
And I think at the time, there was no, in the 90s, when I was a teenager and discovering who I was and all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
I was fine. It was difficult. You couldn't be out. You couldn't be that person. I explicitly had my agent tell me, do not say you're gay to
Right. Right.
anybody. This is
Yeah.
not what you can say at this point. And it was a real thing back then because it it's funny that it was so recent, but it was a very different time.
Mm.
I myself, I feel like things may have gone a bit differently if it was now, and maybe I wouldn't have necessarily done drag, but drag happened at a time in my life when I'd been a male cabaret performer and I'd been doing my own shows and writing my own shows. And
Yeah.
there were like 4 cabaret venues in Sydney and I played them all. And I'd done I look back now and I laugh because I go, gosh, she was bolshy. She was bloody, I was out there doing everything at 18 and 19, which makes me sort of go, oh, wow, I really was. It was a very confident person. I was very confident. And I don't think I would have done the same things now. I don't think I'm as brave now as I was then. But I was doing shows, and when I think about the fact that I was a 20-year-old who took myself to New York for 3 months to go and be a cabaret star, and I did very well, actually. And the
Yeah.
plan was when I was 21, I went back and I did more shows, got great reviews in like Time Out New York and things like that.
Yeah.
When I came home, I was coming home to pack up my life and to then move to New York. And September 11 happened, and everyone said to me, "Don't come now. Not the right time.
Mm.
City's broken. Just don't come." And I was like, "Oh God, okay. So now what?" And
Yeah.
now what ended up being, I had a drag queen named Portia Turbo come to my show and say, "Have you ever thought about doing drag?" And I was doing my show at Glen Street Theatre, Trevor the Arena Mega Musical, of course. And she came to my show and Portia said, "I think you'd be very good because you can sing and I think you'd be a great drag performer." I went, "Well, tried." So
Yeah.
I went to the Albury and I started to learn how to do my makeup. And next thing you know, I was working 6 nights a week. And I think what that gave me was an understanding that I've been doing all these sort of wanky New York style cabaret shows that were all about, finding obscure material nobody's ever heard before and things like that.
Yeah.
What drag taught me to do was I had a non-paying, not necessarily interested audience. And so what I did was I had to learn how to entertain those people, get their attention, sing stuff they knew. And that's what I learned. I learned really how to entertain a crowd by being a drag queen for years.
Yeah.
And it's that then led me to sort of the more mainstream success that I had. And I think that's what's interesting. It was just, it's happened in such a strange way how my career's moved through. But I think the main thing was that even when I was an 18-year-old and 20-year-old cabaret boy, I always backed myself. That was the main thing. I was always, when I was 15, I put up the money for my own show, which I produced and rented a theatre.
Yeah.
And had a cast and they had a band and had new arrangements, and I talked everybody into it. And it was a profit share. It was a co-op. It didn't make any money. But I managed to get a cast of like 8 people and a 5-piece band, and we did this show and rented a theatre. And I was 15 years old, and I go, oh gosh, it's funny, isn't it, when you look back at those things, and that has continued on, because so much of my work has been stuff I've actually produced. So that's where it's gone.
And now you're producing shows at the Sydney Opera House. Johnny, we've got John Foreman at the helm conducting with this beautiful orchestra to a sellout crowd. I mean, I sat there with our friend Rod Richards, and we both sort of just looked around and went, "Look what she's done!" Like, this whole, obviously it's during Mardi Gras, and you've got everybody that's flying in from different countries, but like, what's that? When you walked out on stage, I mean, so it was the Shirley Bassey night, and you must have been, showed in your performance how excited you were and how incredibly honoured you were to have that. But I mean, just like you said, at 15, you're going, all right, we're going to put this show on, we're going to do this, it's a co-op, to now the Sydney Opera House. So how do you sort of finish the night with that and be like, you know what, I'm done?
I mean, I'll get teary now because, I sang at the Opera House in the choirs, as so many of us did when we were in the state schools choirs, and we'd go and sing. And I was a little kid of 6 or 7 years old and singing at the Opera House for the choral concerts.
Yeah.
And I had dreamed that would happen. And now that it's happened so much, it's kind of, you get, I don't think anyone will ever get over the honour of performing at a venue like the Concert Hall of the Opera House, especially I've done 3 of my own solo concerts in that room,
mm-hmm.
and as well as 2 state theatre concerts. And I feel like the fact that I've managed to get there especially doing what I actually do, which is female impersonation, and having it get to a point where it has become mainstream enough. Well, I have made my own career mainstream enough to do it. Uh, yeah, it's incredibly special, and
Yeah.
you still get humbled by doing it, and it's exciting. It's really exciting, and standing there and getting, getting a standing ovation at the Sydney Opera House. You go, this is seriously unbelievable. And then the other times I've gotten to work in that room with, I got to do with the Sydney Symphony, doing Funny Girl with Caroline O'Connor and Casey Donovan and
Yeah.
Natalie Waite and all those fabulous Virginia Gay, all these amazing artists. And to be able to be on stage as one of the leading ladies of musical theatre in this country, you kind of go, God, it's different. The world's changed, and it's joyous. It's joyous to think of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting topic about like how now it is mainstream and how, the world is changing. I mean, I did I Will Survive. It was on Channel 10 in 2012. And that was a very, very different time. It was based on Priscilla. The role, the winner was going to perform Tick on Broadway, and it was this huge spectacle. Everything closed down on Broadway. But in 2012, we got half the cast that were, predominantly straight and half the cast that weren't. That's only 8 years ago. To think of what's happening now, what do you want to see change even more so in the mainstream that you're trying to achieve yourself, or that you'd like to see happen on TV, stage, anything?
Look, I think honestly, all of my dreams have come true in terms of how things are viewed and how much more accepted we are, and as gay performers, and gay people in the world. Like, I mean, watching Hollywood, the Ryan Murphy series that I binged in a day because it was so amazing. But to see that they're telling that on a platform, and I was saying this to friends the other night, to know that millions of people are watching that series, and it's got gay sex, gay hookers, gay this, gay that, and it's just there. And there's been no articles saying we need to shut down Netflix, and there's been no articles saying, I mean, I'm astounded. So I feel like we're there. I think that it's unbelievable that is what can happen. And now I just want to star in a Ryan Murphy show, just because I just love what he does, and I love his aesthetic. And I've been watching, all this stuff for years, from Glee to that amazing feud with Susan Sarandon, that was extraordinary. These sort of things that I've always wanted to see. I think because of the way that we now watch entertainment, and the fact that, it isn't just, straight white men at Channel 9 choosing the programming. Now it's choose your own adventure on these streaming platforms. And I think that that's what's so exciting, that you can create something that would have once been seen. Like if you'd have pitched that show, if you'd have pitched Hollywood 20 years ago, he could have gone to, 100 studios, networks, and it would never have been made.
Yeah.
And we're at this point in 2020 where we're watching it being made, and not only being made, I mean, it's being savaged by the critics, but I don't care. It's fantastic. I loved it. But it was more about the fact that it says something about where we've gone, and I'm happy where we are.
Do you think that's on an international scale? Do you think we're in Australia where we are there yet, or do you think we're just that little bit far behind?
Look, I just think that we don't get to make enough content in this country, and I think we should make more. And I think that the exciting thing is now to get, even sex education was an Australian woman conceived that, who grew up here and went to VCA, and now she's made sex education. That's a huge hit on Netflix across the world. I think there are ways of doing it. I don't know whether it's always going to happen here, but I would like to think that we are trying to do that now. I would like to think that. I'd like to think we're more progressive and that things like that will be made.
I guess it sort of should come to a time when we're not sort of going, oh, it's a gay movie or it's a gay thing. It's not like we don't have to put a label on it. It's just a
No,
movie. It's
it's
just,
just a movie,
you
yeah.
know, I'm doing
And,
that
and
stuff.
I don't think, and I think that's what's beautiful about Hollywood, the series. I'm like, oh, it's very cab, but it's not a gay. It's not a gay story, but it has gay characters in it. But what's amazing is I loved it so much because I just go, gosh, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this would have been A, never made, and B, if it was made, people would have been writing letters. There would have been a controversy in the media about, the gay sex scenes, even Will and Grace coming back, 20 something years later. And the fact that they, only ever had one gay kiss on Will and Grace in the first run of it that went for 7 years. And you think, God, isn't that crazy? And now they like kissing everybody on that show. It's like, but it's just different. It's just great. It's great. It's gone so much further, and I think that's exciting for me because I think there's a point that I've hit here that I need to make sure that I'm now becoming a bit more international. Not that I can leave the country currently, but just even the fact that I'm doing like little Facebook live shows and people are tuning in from Paris and London and Vienna and they're writing to me and that's exciting because it's making me remember that, oh yeah, that's right, I've performed in all these places and I want to go back as soon as I can.
Well, I guess that kind of you've played, do impersonations of women in musicals. It was Priscilla, it was Hairspray, but then seeing a mainstream musical in Les Mis, it's also really different for people. Although a kind of a character role, is there anything else now that you kind of go, actually, I want to sink my teeth into that and play that?
I was so lucky that the way that Les Mis happened was so fast. I knocked my mirror off the wall. The way that Les Mis happened was so exciting because Sir Cameron came to see me do Little Orphan Trashley at the Opera House. And I'm dressed as an orphan with the red thing and the big red afro playing Annie, basically.
Yeah.
And Cameron came to see that. And from that, he can play Thénardier. And you go, oh, I love it when there are producers that can see through the other stuff. And look, there's a couple of roles. I'm going for one right now that I'd really like to do because they're very me. And there's like, I'd love to play the baker in Into the Woods, for example.
Yeah.
I got to do Herod, which I always wanted to do in Jesus Christ Superstar, and I love doing that. There are certainly boy roles I want to do, but then there's also like, I do want to play Albin in La Cage, which is a drag role. But, there's all sorts of things I want to do. And it's lovely to sort of think about those and to think about the future of that.
Yeah. You do produce your own shows and you direct your own shows, or you've certainly probably got a great team around you. Getting into that mindset, is that just something like the trials and tribulations of putting on any show? Some shows are a massive success and you think, oh, great, I've got a winning ticket. Is there one particular formula that you can give advice for people to just use? Or is it like, you know what, sweetheart, it's not going to work like that? Or it is, I have no idea.
Unfortunately, no. I wish it was. I mean, I had things like Fat Swan, for example, that I wrote and produced, and it was a huge hit. And everywhere it went, it sold 1 million tickets. Everybody loved it. Everyone came. The Body Bag, again, the same. And then last year doing The Lion Queen, which I think is one of the funniest, best things I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it was the one that couldn't sell a damn ticket. And I have no idea why.
Yeah.
It's in the same format. You'd assume that my audience would get bigger, not smaller. And it was tough. And I mean, these are the things, like, I mean, showbiz is hard and it's never predictable. And I think that is the main thing for me is it's not how you think it's ever going to turn out necessarily. Same as my career. It's not the path I thought that was going to be taken. And I'm testament to, I think if you're talented and tenacious enough and want it and work hard, then you can get there without doing it the normal way, whatever that is, which is, drama school and then get into a show and get into another show, I'm one of those people that I don't go and audition for things when I know I'm not right. There's no point.
Yeah.
And I'm not right a lot, because I look at the shows between auditioning for Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which was the last thing I auditioned for.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't done an audition since Les Mis in 2013.
Wow.
So I did 6 years without doing a musical theatre audition because there was nothing I was right for. And so that's one of those things where you go, oh, and it can be like that. And I mean, now it feels like, oh, there's a few roles coming up that I can do, and I have good relationships with the producers and I've worked hard enough and I'm known enough that it is okay for me to go, I get into final rounds, I just get given material. I get, I'm afforded that privilege now. Yeah. But, it's still, I'm standing there at the final auditions for Jamie with Simon Burke, one of my best friends, going, oh, darling, it's you or me, isn't it? And it was the two of us at the end. And we're like, oh. And I went, I'd give it to you, actually. And he was like, oh, aren't you sweet, darling? I'm like, well, I would. And he did. He got it. And I did it. Yeah. But, it's... but that was the first thing I'd auditioned for. So everything in between Les Mis and now I've produced and come up with it. And there is never a formula. And some things have been wildly successful in terms of... The Lion Queen got the best reviews I've ever had for one of those sort of shows. Mm-hmm. Didn't sell any tickets. My concert with Conchita Wurst, it sold great and it was incredible. I mean, I get to do quite amazing things, and I guess I've created that. But it is, it's never predictable. It's certainly never predictable.
No,
and there's certainly no formula.
No, right. Is there anything you had in the pipeline, producing wise, of another show? Because you did Heathers. Is there something else that you really want to produce, or you're like, oh, 2021 now, it might be an idea, or leave that?
Look, there's a few things. I'm actually working on a musical that I'm writing and directing of the life of Carlotta. Wow. Which I think will be quite amazing if we can get it up. Telling the story of Carlotta, King's Cross in the 60s and 70s, that sort of era. Carol has given me the rights to her life. So I'm working on...
What an honour. Wow, here's the rights to her life.
And we've become friends, and she said to me, I only trust you to tell this story, so I want you to do it, and I think it'll be a great musical. And I think she's absolutely right. I think it will be a fabulous musical because Carol's life is an extraordinary one that has never happened before and will never happen again. She's one of a kind, and I love her, and we're so close, and she's my Auntie Carol, and I call her up, and that sort of stuff is the stuff that I've been able to pinch myself about, like after seeing Rhonda Birchmore on Hey Hey It's Saturday as a kid, and loving Rhonda Birchmore. Yeah. To get to the point that we're best mates now, and she sang at my 40th birthday, and we did a show together called Twins, and now we call each other Twinny, and we're always each other's twin. And it's, those sort of things are complete honours. The fact that Gina Riley, who I obsessed over as a kid watching her, the fact that, we chat and I'm desperate to work with her on something, and she's been, absolutely, we're going to find the right project and we're going to do it. So the fact that she even knows who I am and that she's seen my work, I'm like, oh, that's really special. All of that sort of stuff. I'm just, that's when I go, wow, this has been an amazing thing to get to this point. And I don't know what's next. And I think this is what's interesting about this particular time.
Mhm.
I'm feeling like this is time to change and time to diversify. And this is what, as horrendous as it is, this virus has given us some time to think and to reflect on things. And I'm very grateful that I think the world has had a minute to stop and that we can reassess where we are, everybody, and
Yeah.
what we're doing. And I mean, it's terrifying, but it's also amazing that we had to have this moment. We had to have a moment. It was out of control. We were all too
So many
available.
different levels, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm ready to make a change. I wanted to change. I've just turned 40. I'm like ready for the next chapter because, I've watched when I was 30, I got the lead in Hairspray. And then since then I've done, cabaret shows at the Opera House and concerts and toured the world and, I've done all sorts of things. So now what's next? And that's what's exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a great way to finish off. That you have paved the way so far for so many different people, and you've opened those doors for the younger generations to come up. And like I said, I do look up to you and admire everything that you do, Trevor. And I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me on that show with Mahy.
Of course, darling. Thanks for having me.